This is The Spot, a BYU-Idaho radio production where we talk about what you're talking about at BYU-Idaho. Today's hosts are Colin Dupuis, Jared Webster, John McSwain, Annika, Michelle, and me, Nina Shakin. The views and opinions of this podcast are not that of BYU-Idaho Radio or the university and are solely the opinions of the hosts. Annika, how is starting college for you? You started college probably at 18, right? So just kind of fresh out of high school?
Well, actually, due to my birthday being later in the year, I'm actually 19.
Okay, yeah.
But yeah, my plan was right after high school to actually go on a mission, but like I said, due to my birthday being later in the year, I wasn't actually old enough yet. Mm-hmm. So then the plan changed to getting enough money and coming to BYU-Idaho as soon as possible so I could start in college.
And was that kind of intimidating for you, like coming into classes or just coming here in general, just kind of fresh out of high school?
Yeah, it was. In high school, I was, used to everyone being around my age and being able to connect with people. But coming here, I realized there are so many different age groups and people coming from all over the country and even from other countries that it really took me off guard at first.
I was wondering because I'm just thinking, for me, I kind of had a little more experience with it, just being at home of like living on my own and stuff like that and having my own studio. But for you, Annika, like having to go from, living with siblings and your parents to living on your own, what was that experience like for you?
Yeah, it was a big change for me. Coming here was my first time living, I guess, on my own. I don't know, I have an apartment with roommates, so it's not exactly alone. But yeah, definitely, away from family for a long time. It was pretty hard at first, I was always thinking about them and missing them a lot. Sometimes it was distracting, but, eventually I just got into the school rhythm and, if I ever felt homesick, I could just call them, which was great.
Yeah. That's awesome. Like I honestly, I talk to my mom every day just because like it was me and her alone in New Jersey. So, I kind of need that connection, at least by phone, just to not feel homesick too much. But also, at this point, this is my third semester, I've kind of just gotten used to, having to connect and really want to extend my relationships. That is where with like friends, I wanted to grow that network. And it's been tremendous here. Like everyone's super friendly. And, even I know with your roommates, you guys have created a chemistry together. And I think that's really special about, the whole experience of, just coming out of high school and going into a college setting.
Yeah, and I think, we wanted to talk a little bit about like advantages or disadvantages of age gaps. And I think there's so much to learn from people who are of a different age than you. I have a friend, and she's actually been on the show before. Her name's Emma. She is younger than me, but not quite, 18. She just turned 21. And I'm 25, and most of my friends are kind of around the age of 25. And it's kind of funny because she's always telling us, well, I just love being friends with you guys because I feel like I just learn something new every single day. And she's like, I just love that all my friends are older than me because you guys have so much life advice to give. Which I think is really cute that she like admits that, because I would never have said something like that ever to friends of mine that were older than me. Like I would have just been like, yeah, we're all the same. But she's like, yeah, you guys just teach me so much. And I really feel like that's true too. We're going to talk a little bit on this episode later on with another guest that's going to be much older, someone who's a student in college who's a lot older. And I think for me, that's been fun too. Like I'll see people in my classes that are I had someone in one of my classes that was well into her 80s, and it was a Zoom class, and she was struggling with the Zoom. But it's interesting because I've noticed that a lot of these people who are much older in college, like, they just appreciate it so much, and they throw themselves into it. Like, if you need help with an assignment, or if you're wondering what's going on, I can guarantee you the person in your class that's like 30, 40, 50, 80 is going to be like into the assignment way before you've even started it. Like, they've got their checklists, they're organized, they're enthusiastic. Like, you're dreading it, and they're like, oh, this is going to be so great. Like, there's just some sort of enthusiasm that comes. And so I think you can learn a lot from that too.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that. I think it's more as like they're more, I wouldn't say motivated, maybe dedicated, but they want to take this serious. They have one goal in mind, to get their education, to get their degree, and they want to take it as serious as possible.
We also wanted to talk about just like tips or advice that we would give to either like a Gen Z student or an older student. And I think, I've just kind of been thinking about it with everything we've been talking about. My biggest piece of advice, whatever age group you're in, is to not be afraid to ask for help from somebody who might know more about something than you. Because like I said, when I came here, I didn't understand how to use Canvas. I was super confused. And I just had to ask one of my roommates who had been at school for a while, like, look, can you show me how this works? And after I was shown, and after I felt more comfortable asking my professors questions and asking people how to get to buildings, oh my gosh, I got lost when I first got here. This campus is not even that big, Like, if you are confused about something, my biggest piece of advice is just to ask for help. If you have an older student in the class and you feel like they're super organized and they're great at getting on top of their assignments, ask them, how do you organize? Like, how do you stay on top of all of your responsibilities? I'm sure they have great advice. Thank you so much, John. And thank you, Annika, for coming and talking to us about this today. We're going to switch over now and talk to our other host, Colin, and his guest, who is going to be a bit of an older student here on campus, so we can get kind of both of the perspectives there. We have Michelle here with us, and she is an older student attending BYU-Idaho, and she just has a completely different perspective than probably Annika does, who we just talked to, who's 19 and just starting off. Michelle, could you just tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're going to, what you're going to school for? And
Sure. I am a 54-year-old divorced member of the church going to school at BYU-Idaho. I'm a communications major with a minor in industrial organizational psychology. And, sometimes you just go where the Lord tells you. And I feel like I'm safe to say that here. And he told me to come here, so here I am. So following my divorce, trying to figure out what to do, and he brought me here.
And how long have you been here now?
2.5 years.
And what has been your experience overall? Are you happy to be doing it? Do you regret?
I would really love to be done, but that's just because I am older and I just want to be done, go on to the next phase of my life. It's been interesting as an older student because I come into contact with, of course, a lot of students anywhere from 17 to 34, 35 years old. And there's a generation gap there. Like, I'm your parent, right? I have kids your age. I have kids that are older than you, than the majority of the students on campus. And so it's definitely a different lifestyle. You can't come as a 54-year-old and expect to, go to parties and meet a bunch of people, and because that's just not... That's not where I'm at. And the students don't accept me that way, and that's okay. Some of the interesting things is I go into class and I can usually pick out the people that are like, oh, God, why is she here? And then others that are like, oh, cool, there's somebody older here. So there's some people that I think are afraid I'm going to try to be the mom. And I don't want to be the mom. And then I have
already are a mom.
Yeah. And I have other people wanting me to be their mom. So I like, my group right now in my HR class is great, and I haven't had this particular problem. But in some classes, when I get into a group, they expect me to lead the group, lead the discussion, take care of that. And I'm like, no, not my job. I'm a student just like you. But they see the gray hair, and they're like, oh, we can make her do it. She'll do it because she doesn't want to fail. And I don't. but I won't do it.
I will say I do appreciate, because we are taking a class right now, me and Michelle. I do appreciate your perspective a lot of times, because in our HR class, we talk a lot about the things that are important when it comes to like your job. Like just recently, we're talking about like health insurance stuff, and I've dealt with a little bit. But when you had that life experience, you can learn a lot, and that's the whole basis of BYU-Idaho. It's supposed to be able to learn from your students. And when you've had someone that had life experience, you gain so much more from them. I'll be honest with you. It's really a breath of fresh. When I see someone in the class that's like older than me, I'm like, thank goodness I'm not going to be the one to be like the teacher, because so often I do, as an older-ish student, I'm almost 30 and I'm finally graduating. A lot of times I do feel like the mentor or the teacher, and I don't really want to be that all the time. So it's like, I can have someone else kind of be that one to be like, based off of my experience, this is what I've dealt with.
Yeah.
I think it's amazing. I kind of wish we had more of that. We have a few students. I think you talked about how when you first got here, there was a Facebook group that you were originally part of, not anymore, but originally part of.
Right.
That was like older students. Can you talk a little bit about what that was about?
When I first got here, I was feeling very alone on campus because people are not always open to saying hi to the old lady in the classroom. And so I was kind of seeking out, because periodically I would see an old lady or an old guy walking across campus, and I'd think, okay, there's more than just me here. And so I did look out into Facebook and find a group, and we just communicated just a few times, and then COVID hit, and my life got super crazy because between my job and attending classes full time, I just couldn't balance that and social media, so I got rid of it. But I still see periodically people on campus that are older. I actually attend church with a sister that's in almost my exact same boat. Older sister, has kids that are grown, got divorced, and is like, now what? And decided to come and go to school. So there are a few of us here doing it.
I think it's interesting that you said that sometimes people kind of expect you to come in and do a lot of work. I'm actually really not surprised by that, because I've had older students. There are people here because I've had students in my class, and I've really noticed that a lot of times when someone's come in and they're older, they are really enthusiastic about class. They're like super excited to learn, which I think is great. But I'm not surprised that in a group setting, it can turn into, well, this person's excited, they're organized, clearly they're getting a good grade, so will you do the work for me?
Right.
Because I think that happens with anybody who's excited or I guess really into the class. How have you kind of gotten through that or navigated that when people are looking at you like you're the boss of the group? What do you say to them?
Sometimes, I start out trying to be kind and yet firm, right? And I'll say, well, you guys have your part and I've got mine, and I'll take care of this. And I did have one exchange in a class, one of my very most favorite classes, but I was in a group where one guy literally would just get up and walk out of class and not participate in our group at all because he thought that the rest of us, and especially me, would do it. And I finally just said to his face, I am not your mother. I am your peer. So please step up or we're going to have a problem here. And he was shocked that I, kind of acted like I'd hit him across the face. And he did pick it up towards the end of the semester where he really was contributing more. And I don't know that he did it intentionally. I don't think it was a cognizant thought. I think he was just like, oh, this is an easy way out. My life's busy. And he had a new baby, a wife, like he had things going on. So I wasn't trying to judge him. I was just trying to be fair with all of us because it wasn't fair to the other people on the team either.
Right. For sure. And that can be hard. I mean, I feel like I've had smaller situations where I am older. I feel like a lot more driven compared to a lot of the younger students. A lot of younger students, their focus is on like fun. They're here to have a good time and then do schoolwork. Where I'm here to do schoolwork, and maybe if I have time, I'll go do something fun. And my definition of fun is a lot different. Even when I got here as like a 25-year-old, I wasn't going to the parties. My hangout was more of like, I was dating at the time and engaged, and I was just like, let's just sit home and watch a movie. Like, I don't really want to go out. Like, there's like events that we would show up to, and then I'd immediately turn around and walk out the door because I'm like, this is not my environment. All these 18-year-olds like having a good time. I just didn't fit in, so I didn't really fit that mold, and I really was here for a different purpose. and it still reflects a little bit. Sometimes I'll be in class and I'm really, I can be the same way. I can be like, let's really get things done. When people aren't doing that, I can get really frustrated.
Yeah.
Right? Because I'm like, you
It
guys
can
just
be very
aren't.
frustrating.
Yeah, you're not really on the same page as me. And it's hard to expect them to be because they're in a different part of their life, but it can be hard navigating that water.
And part of the challenge for me is I work full time. I'm a
Right.
manager of Windsor Manor, which is a 344-bed housing complex. Like, there's a lot. I work full time, and I'm going to school full time. I don't have time to play around.
Nope.
And so when I, at the beginning of a class, when, you're assigned a group project and it's like, okay, you all have to do this by the end of the semester. And I'm like, okay, let's get to work on it because I got a plan.
Right.
And other students aren't always of that mindset. They're like, oh, well, they procrastinate, wait till the very last minute, and which makes me crazy because I have no idea when I'm going to have the next, problem that I have to drop everything and take care of work. And I am a mom. I've got 3 grown kids. My mother is 84 years old. So I've got to be in a position where if I have to go do something right away, if I have an emergency, and I'm thinking those things where the average 18-year-old isn't thinking that way.
No, and I appreciate that when I get a group member that way because I'm like, thank goodness someone thinks like me.
Like, let's just get this done.
Yeah, let's actually just get things done and not put it off.
It is kind of interesting because I think I came to school not even really, I mean, I didn't come when I was 18, but I came when I was 21. And I had already been done with a mission. And I think I at times felt the same way. Like, I remember having a roommate that asked me, do you think I should go to class today? And this was like a common thing, like situations.
Yeah.
And I was like, will it affect your grade if you don't?
Yes.
Like, I mean, if not, then, but it was just constantly, like, I feel like people were asking me questions where I was like, this just seems like you could figure this out on your
Yeah.
own. And even coming in at 21, though, I did find that I felt behind because I just gotten off a mission. So I was really struggling with like computer situations. Like, I hadn't been allowed to use technology, not even a phone, really, for a year and a half. And then I came here and I had to be on Canvas, and I was shocked.
Yeah.
And what I think was hard for me was these people who are like, should I go to class today, are like breezing through Canvas. And I
Right.
was like, I'm so stressed because I don't know how to do this.
I can't even log on.
I can't even log on, and I felt so behind.
Yeah.
I mean, have you guys ever felt that way, like either with technology or just with other things where you felt like behind in class that way?
I feel it all the time. The technology is, and I used to joke with my now ex-husband, he's a computer geek. And so I always told him that was his job security with me because I am not. Like, the fact that I can get on Canvas and turn in assignments some days is like exciting.
A miracle.
Yes,
I did it.
miracle. And that's hard for me because, we're all a little bit prideful. And I'll be in a class struggling with some technology. I've got a visual design class right now. And there are times that I'm like, I just want to throw the computer, and they're all whipping through it. And I'm like, no, like, somebody slow down. And instructors are used to, everybody knowing how to do it, how to log on,
Right.
how to get this. And they whip through things. And I'm like, wait, back up. Where did you even start?
Where did you click? Yeah.
Because I hadn't quite gotten logged on yet. But with use, I mean, I'm better now. I'm not quite as worried about that as I was. But the thought of, going to the computer lab makes my heart hurt.
Right. Do you feel like professors have been pretty understanding on that front, like willing to back up or maybe like take time out of the schedule to help you? I mean, I feel like I've seen that, but I wonder if you've had the same experience.
Yeah, I can always set office hours. I've got a couple of instructors that they say, oh, our door is always open, and it's really not.
Yeah, they're just as busy.
Always. Yeah, and they are, and I get
Right.
that. For the most part, yes.
Yeah.
They'll slow down, or I can talk to them separately or what have you.
That's good to hear.
There are times that I'm not brave enough or I'm a little too prideful to even say. So I've more than once called my son or my daughter and said, or my other son too, and said, okay, this is where I'm at and this is what I'm trying to do. Like, what should I try next, And they've been super, super supportive.
That's awesome.
And so you've been here for 2 years now. So were you doing school during COVID?
Yes.
Yes. And how was that? Like with Zoom and everything?
So when COVID started, that was my first semester in Rexburg.
Oh my
And my
gosh.
first semester, and I had originally registered for 15 credits and had cut it down to 12. Then March 13th happened, which was the day the school said we're closing. And I just didn't sleep for a long time. For the rest of the semester, pretty much, because we had so much going on at work. because people were leaving town and all of that. And so the next semester, I can't even remember now. I think I only took 2 classes. Like, I haven't been full time until this semester since. Okay. So through COVID, I still took classes, but I wasn't full time because I just could not balance my work COVID life and school. And I came to school to sit in a seat.
Right.
I do not like learning online. It's not that I can't do Zoom or that I can't do Canvas. Like, I figured those things out. I learn better with my butt in a seat, talking to a person, having face-to-face, being able to say, I don't quite get that. Where in Zoom, you don't really have that flexibility, and you don't feel like, I missed the sound, right? We're all on silent. The teacher talks, and maybe the teacher cracks a joke, but no one laughs because you don't hear it. Mm-hmm. Like, I miss that, and that's part of that connection for me. Mm-hmm. That I really struggled with. So I just kept it to a couple of classes a semester because I knew if I stopped, I'd never get back because I so want to be done.
Yes. COVID was tough for me too. It was really difficult. And I actually remember I had a classmate she was in her 80s, I think. Mm-hmm. And she was really, really struggling with Zoom. And I just remember thinking, like, the professor is going to have to stop and take some time to just explain some of the just little things, like she would have a hard time with the mic situation or, with branching off into a group.
The breakout rooms,
The breakout rooms,
I
which
never
were
quite got those.
Really ineffective. Most of it I found to be ineffective.
No.
I found my classes to be ineffective most of the time.
Yeah.
And I really felt for her because I was like, I'm struggling with this, and I've been onto the technology thing for a while now, and she's just starting school again,
Yeah.
So, yeah, I can't imagine. It was really tough.
The online learning, and it was frustrating for me. Mm-hmm. And we all struggled with something through COVID, right? Mm-hmm. And I kept struggling with this, okay, Father in heaven, you put me here to go to school.
Yeah.
Now I can't go to school. Like, what's the deal? So there was a little bit of a faith crisis there too at the same time where I'm like, I really want to do this. I feel like I've been put here to do this and I can't do this. And I just learn better in a seat. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, and I know some people are like, oh no, give me internet any day, online school. I'm like, okay, you go ahead. There's got to be a place for everybody, but that ain't mine.
Yeah.
I think younger students sometimes will thrive a little bit more in that. There's other aspects of it that I did enjoy, and they're more of the lazy side of it, like rolling out of bed and getting
going
on Zoom.
to class in your pajamas.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Eating breakfast while,
Yeah, because I
cooking breakfast.
Right.
Class.
Oh my gosh. Eating. Yeah. Like, oh my gosh. Because I finally remembered our first class we took together. It was actually remote. Mm-hmm. I figured out the other day it was with Brother Robbins. I can't remember what the class was exactly. I think it had to do with like media literacy, something along those lines.
Media literacy.
Yeah. And yeah, that was tough. I didn't feel that same connection either. I feel like Brother Robbins did a pretty good job. I remember he's like a film guy. I feel like he was pretty good with tech. He had like a really good setup too. He had like a microphone. He had like a perfect like a side camera.
And the lighting was perfect.
Yeah, he did a really good job.
That's great.
And here I am looking like
looking up at me. I'm like in my pajama. Yeah, it was rough. But my biggest experience with like feeling old in class was I took a cluster of like marketing classes because I also considered doing marketing for a while. And then I found out I was going to change it, but then I found out it actually was very useful to my direction of HR because I'm learning a lot about how to create content, create all these things that can relate to HR in some capacity. So it's actually been very beneficial. I've been very grateful for what I've learned. But a lot of times in the class, and a lot of these students are like, first would be like, how should we market this idea? And everyone's like, oh, we should do TikTok. And I was like, I don't really know what that means anymore.
And I don't want to
I don't know if I want to know. I'm one of the few last millennials, so I'm in class with all these Gen Zers, and I love them. They're awesome. They're fun. They're really creative, especially those marketing classes. But sometimes I'm like, man, these concepts are just not my generation,
right?
And it's hard for me to really put myself in their shoes sometimes because it's just not what I'm used to.
Yeah.
And it really does make me feel a little alienated at times. It makes you feel behind the curve more often than I like to admit. So it can be hard.
It can be. And sometimes one of my struggles is I'm trying really hard to not judge people and where they're at in their life because we're all at such a different place, right? And that's how I want to be treated. I don't want anybody to look at me and go, oh, look at that divorcee. You know, like I want just to be Michelle. And so there are times that a younger student will say something and I'm like, oh my gosh, would you just grow up?
Yeah.
And then I'm like, no, wait a minute. They just haven't learned that yet.
Yeah.
Or I'll look at an older student. I know an older student that's here that's just really struggling because they came with this idea that they want to be 17, right? But they're not.
Yeah.
And it's just the way it is. And so they really struggle with roommates and classes and because, well, why don't they know? Well, because they don't. They're half your age.
Right.
They I don't know. I try really hard to look at people and say, okay, you know, you Colin are at one place and I'm at a different place and they're, you know, and not judge. But sometimes I really do want to just shake someone. And my mom always used to say, shake them till their teeth rattle. Yeah. You know, and just say, just don't you understand? And I can't.
Right.
That's not the thing to do.
Yeah.
I think we've talked about a lot of kind of disadvantages or some things that we've struggled with. But what are some advantages of being an older student at a college that primarily has younger people?
I love being with young people. I thrive on it. You all give me energy, and I love being with you guys. It makes me young. And my patriarchal blessing talks about how I will work with young adults. And so as I'm here with the job I'm in and in classes, I have made some really amazing friendships and relationships that I think are going to last a long time. Maybe they don't, but I do. Yeah. and that opportunity to help mentor. I've had some students that have struggled and I'm like, hey, what do you need? Like, I can be the mom right now. I can put the mom hat on. And that's been really fulfilling for me, that I've been able to maybe help somebody through a hard time, through a struggle. I believe that everyone has a life experience for a reason, and we all have a past, whatever that is. Maybe it's all roses and lollipops, maybe it isn't. And mine isn't. Like, I wouldn't be here if it was all roses and lollipops. And so how can I help with what I've learned through those life experiences, the people around me? I'll be honest, the first year I was here, I hated it. I hated being here. I hated my ward. I hated everything about this place. And I really did have just kind of a paradigm shift where I'm like, okay, I just can't. I don't want to be miserable the whole time I'm in Rexburg. And how can I embrace it? And I was actually in a conversation with one of those students and thought, this is why I'm here, is to learn and to grow myself, but to also help people get through some of those things that I have experience in.
For sure.
Yeah, I think on a really like much smaller level to that, I even have a friend I'm 25, right? So I'm not that old, but my friend is 21. Okay, she's only 4 years younger than me. She just turned 21. She's very excited. But she's always telling us, because most of my friends are around 25, 26, older.
Right.
And she's always with us. And she's like, I just love being your guys' friends because I feel like I learn something new every single day.
Yeah.
She's like, you guys are always telling me. And she's like, well, is it okay if I talk about this? Or is it okay if I say this in this situation? Or she's like, thanks so much. And she's just like, and I think that's really, I don't know, really like humble of her. And I just think when I was 21 and even now, if there was someone who's 4 years older than me, I would not be like, wow, I'm so grateful that I learned something new from you every day. Like, I think I'm just too prideful for that. But it's true that, you know, when you have people who are from different backgrounds and are of different ages, there's so much you can learn either from someone who's younger, because I feel like I learn a lot from her too, or from somebody who's older who's just had different experiences than you.
And I've been really blessed that these relationships that I've had have been reciprocal. Is that the right word? Where it has been back and forth, right? I know I've helped them, but they've also helped me learn and grow and become a better person. And kind of look at the world through a different set of eyes. I do have kids. I've got a 22-year-old, a 25-year-old, and a 32-year-old, and they're amazing. But every once in a while I'll say, oh, you know, Celia's really bugging me. And, you know, one of these classmates or one of my employees might go, well, wait a minute, why don't you look at it this way? Maybe this is where she's coming from. And so that's helped me a lot. Sorry, I'm going to get emotional. That's helped me a lot with my own kids, is to have these relationships where, you know, my friends, my 25-year-old friends or 21-year-old friends are able to say, you know what, Michelle, you need to step back. You're the mom and she's an adult now and you need to back off. And I'm like, oh, okay then. So it's reciprocal and it's nice.
Yeah, that diversity that you can experience of like age diversity is really powerful.
Yeah,
and it is kind of, it feels really good too when you get to be that person to some extent too. I know I was just complaining about like sometimes I become the mentor and I don't necessarily always want to be, but sometimes I'll help them with something and then I see them succeed and it makes me feel.
It feels good.
It feels really good. I'm like, oh, I wonder if that's what, you know. I don't have kids yet. I'm like, I wonder if that would kind of to be a parent and be able to help your kids succeed, and it feels great. I'm
just so you know, yes.
Yeah. Okay. I was gonna say most likely, right? I would assume that's probably what that's like, and it feels good. And I've received so much help in my life, and I realized that at some points too. I'm like, you know, I've had a lot of beneficial times in my life where someone older is like, hey, this is, you know, a good thing to think about how to do this. And I'm like, you know, that really helped me through a lot of hard times. Now it's my turn to try to be that in some capacity. You know, sometimes I'm in these classes where these kids weren't even alive during like major events that I feel like are big parts of my life, you know, that I experienced. And I'm like, really? Like, you weren't even alive then? Like, geez.
How do you think I feel?
Yeah, I know, right? It's hard, right? And
I actually had a tenant the other day say something about, I was born in 1988, and I said, I was married and had a child when you were born. Like, I graduated from high school in 1985, and it just, I don't know, it blows their mind sometimes when they're like, oh yeah, you are that old, huh? And I'm like, yeah, I'm old, so. But I embrace it, so.
What tips or advice would you guys give to maybe a new student coming into college, or just somebody who's younger that's kind of experiencing college life right now?
For like a younger student?
Yeah.
You know, I think if you're younger, like, don't do what I did. Like, I was here for a purpose. Like, I was here for a specific reason. Maybe you are too. Maybe you were just here just to get your school done and get out. That was kind of why I came here. But if you're coming here, try to figure out why you're here. Like, are you looking to get education while having fun? Like, you know where your priorities are, and it's okay to be more for fun. You know, just be aware of your groups and, you know, your group members, because you may be in a group of people that were like me and Michelle. We're here for a purpose. We're trying to get our work done quickly because we have life stuff going on. You know, just be aware of that as well as what you want. You know, just be very considerate, I think. You know, be okay with having fun, but if that affects other people, just be aware of that.
Yeah. Be respectful of the people around you. Yeah. Take time to be 17 or 18 or 20 or 25. Take time to experience that, because this will be the only time you're 25. The other thing, I think, you're living with roommates, and be respectful and get to know them. It blows my mind how many students come here and don't know the people they live with. And I tell people all the time, like, these could be your lifelong friends. And even if they're not your lifelong friends, you should not be miserable through a semester. So get to know them, talk to them, eat pizza together, eat ice cream at 2 a.m. and talk about whatever you want to talk about. But take that time to know people, because it's going to be, you're going to graduate from college and you're going to get to work, and then it's going to be, you know, spouse, kids, parents, because you're in that generation, you're going to be taking care of your parents. Like, and life is going to keep getting busier and crazier and busier and crazier. And this is the time when you're going to be able to make those friends that you're going to be able to take with you the rest of your life.
For sure.
Thank you so much for taking the time to meet with us today. And for our listeners, we'd love to hear about your college experiences and how you felt coming into college at 18 or at an older age. So just let us know, and we'd love to hear about that. So
You've been listening to The Spot, a production of BYU-Idaho Radio. Today's hosts were John McSwain, Jared Webster, Colin Dupuis, Annika, Michelle, and me, Nina Shakin. The views and opinions of this podcast are not that of BYU-Idaho Radio or the university, and are solely the opinions of the hosts. This episode was edited by me, Nina Shakin. Producers were the hosts with supervision by Brandon Isle. Our theme music is Finding Happiness by DJ Quads and The Perpetual Ticking of Time by Artificial Music. To listen to more episodes of The Spot, like and follow us on social media or visit our website, byui.edu/radio, and click podcasts. Be sure to subscribe to the BYU-Idaho Radio podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, or wherever you get your podcasts. And also leave a review of the show and leave a comment on what we should talk about next.